On their anniversary night, a husband walks into a high-end restaurant expecting to celebrate. Instead, he's handed the ultimate betrayal, served not with dessert, but with a smirk. What follows isn't just confrontation. It's a masterclass in calm revenge, captured on camera and broadcast to millions. Daniel eased into the valet lane in front of a downtown Manhattan restaurant, the kind with white tablecloths and silent hostesses who never break posture. His hands rested on the steering wheel longer than they needed to. He wasn't nervous, just unsettled. 10 years of marriage, and he still made the effort. Dinner reservations at a high-end place, a gift in his coat pocket, and every detail planned to the minute. But there was a weight in his chest. Not fear, just pressure. Like he was walking into something he couldn't see yet. He handed off the keys, nodded to the valet, and walked inside. The hostess greeted him by name, flashing a trained smile, and led him to a table with a view. Prime real estate. He was early. His wife, Melissa, was never late. Not for this. Anniversaries meant something. They had rules, traditions. But she wasn't there. He sat, accepted a glass of water from the waiter, and checked his phone once, twice, then forced himself to stop. She arrived 12 minutes later. Not enough to start a fight over, just enough to notice. He stood to greet her. She gave him a kiss on the cheek. Light, disconnected, like bumping shoulders with someone on a crowded train. Sorry. Traffic, she said, sliding into her chair without eye contact. He didn't mention that he'd checked traffic. He knew there wasn't any. Melissa wasn't scrolling through her phone the way she normally did. She wasn't bored. She was waiting. Her eyes kept moving. Toward the entrance, the bar, the waitstaff. Anywhere but him. How was your day? Daniel asked. She blinked. Hectic. You know how it is. He didn't. Not today. But he nodded. The waiter brought menus. Melissa didn't bother looking at hers. Let's just do the tasting menu, she said, waving the waiter off with the same casual dismissal she once reserved for telemarketers. Daniel watched her closely. Something was missing. She used to make picking an appetizer feel like an event. She used to light up in places like this. Now she looked like she'd already left. You look really dressed up, he said, trying to sound neutral. It's a nice place, she replied, eyes still scanning. The appetizers arrived. She moved hers around the plate. Conversation stalled. Daniel asked about her job, her sister, the new dog their neighbors just got. Every answer was clipped, robotic. Her smile, when she used it, wasn't for him. It was the one she gave people at fundraisers. The kind that said, "I'm being polite and nothing more." Then her phone lit up. Just a buzz. Half a second. She grabbed it fast and turned it face down. Too fast. Not startled. Not annoyed. Pleased. Expecting someone? He asked, voice calm. No, she said too quickly. Just a friend. He didn't push. He just nodded. Second course arrived. She didn't touch it. He started to put the puzzle together. She hadn't dressed for him. She hadn't been late because of traffic. She wasn't distracted by work. She was waiting for someone else. At first, Daniel second-guessed himself. Maybe he was reading too much into it. Maybe he was being paranoid. But then the man walked in. Tall, confident. That smug energy that fills a room before words are spoken. Daniel had seen him once before. Briefly. One of those people who introduce themselves like they expect you to remember them forever. Melissa's eyes lit up, not surprise. Recognition. Anticipation. She smiled. Not at Daniel. At him. Hey, the man said like he belonged there. Hope I'm not late. Daniel looked at Melissa. She didn't explain. Didn't introduce him. Just sat back like this was normal. The man grabbed a chair from another table, dragged it over, and sat down between them. Not beside Melissa. Between them. The waiter returned. Stopped short, unsure how to handle the addition. Daniel waved him off without breaking eye contact with the man. Then the man pulled a small box from his coat and placed it beside Melissa's plate. Not a menu item. Not a surprise. A message. Melissa opened it slowly. No hesitation. She looked at Daniel for the first time since she walked in. "I think we should talk," she said. Daniel stayed still. The other man leaned in, lowered his voice, and said 5 words that changed everything. "You can walk away or bleed." The words weren't shouted. They weren't said with menace. They were delivered like a suggestion, like he was offering Daniel a way out. And suddenly, everything clicked into place. This wasn't a conversation. It was a challenge. And Daniel, calm, unshaken, calculating, wasn't about to walk away. The restaurant didn't go quiet all at once. It faded, like someone slowly turning down a dial. Conversations became murmurs. Forks paused midair. People leaned just slightly, trying to listen without appearing obvious. Daniel didn't move. He watched the man across from him lean back, that smirk still sitting on his face like it had nowhere better to be. Melissa didn't speak. She didn't tell the man to leave. She didn't reach for Daniel's hand. She just sat there, eyes low, waiting for the mess to unfold like she wasn't in the middle of it. Daniel looked at the box next to her plate. Closed now. She hadn't touched it again. He wondered briefly what was inside, but not because it mattered. He wasn't here to measure himself against jewelry. "You brought him here?" Daniel asked, voice low but firm. He wasn't asking Melissa. He was reminding the room who had invited chaos to the table. "She didn't bring me," the man said before she could answer. "I came because I needed to." Daniel's fingers rested on his napkin. He didn't clench it. He didn't make a scene. He didn't give them what they wanted. His composure wasn't a shield, it was a weapon. "What do you need exactly?" he asked. "To make sure you get the message." The man leaned in closer, voice just loud enough for nearby tables to catch pieces of the conversation. "You've been dragging this out, pretending. She's done. Everyone knows it but you." Melissa didn't interrupt. Daniel didn't blink. "She deserves someone who can make her happy." The man continued, tone casual, like this was just a business lunch. "She deserves," Daniel echoed. "Or you do." The smirk faltered. People were definitely recording now. Phones angled behind water glasses. Some guests flat out pointed cameras at the table. The waiter stood frozen near the kitchen entrance, trying to decide whether to intervene or vanish. Melissa shifted in her chair, not toward Daniel or the man beside her, but away, as if trying to shrink from the fallout she had engineered. Daniel placed his napkin gently beside his plate. "You walk in here," he said, now facing the man fully. "On our anniversary, sit down uninvited, make threats like it's a movie script, and expect what, gratitude?" The man chuckled. "I expected you to leave." Quietly. Daniel nodded. "Then you came to the wrong table." The chair behind Daniel scraped back, not with haste but intention. He stood slowly, keeping his eyes locked on the man. Melissa finally found her voice. "Daniel, stop. This isn't." She didn't finish. The man rose too, clearly believing the moment was his. "You don't want this." Daniel took one step closer. "I'm not here for want." Before anyone could react, it happened. Quick, clean. The man reached forward, intent unclear, but Daniel was faster. His left hand gripped the man's wrist mid-motion and twisted. Just enough to break rhythm, not bone. The man staggered forward, thrown off balance. Daniel's right hand moved like it had been waiting. One sharp jab to the center of his chest. No theatrics, no raised fists. The air left the man's lungs instantly. He gasped, bent over, and Daniel stepped aside as he collapsed into the adjacent table, sending silverware clattering to the floor. Melissa stood now, hand over her mouth, not running to him, not stopping Daniel, just frozen. Daniel walked over to the man, now coughing and trying to rise. He bent close and spoke directly into his ear. "You show up in my life like a thief and threaten me in public, thinking that makes you bold. You're not bold. You're disposable." He stepped back, allowing the man to stumble to his feet. Blood streaked from the corner of his mouth. No one moved to help him. Security arrived then, 2 men who looked more like accountants in blazers than actual protection. They hesitated, Sir, we're going to have to ask you. Daniel raised a hand without looking at them. His eyes stayed on Melissa. Do you love him? He asked, loud enough for the crowd to hear. She opened her mouth, closed it, then finally muttered, You're making a scene. Daniel exhaled, slowly. No, you brought the scene. I just gave the audience a reason to care. He turned back to the man, still hunched over. One more word, and you'll leave here in more pieces than you walked in with. Then Daniel adjusted his sleeves, walked to a nearby table, took a linen napkin, and dropped it beside the man. For your pride, if there's anything left to cover. Security didn't try to stop him. The manager stepped aside. Daniel left the restaurant with the same calm he walked in with. The room didn't exhale until the door shut behind him. Outside, the valet scrambled to hand him the keys, fumbling in haste. Daniel didn't speak, just took them, stepped into the car, and pulled away. In the rearview mirror, Melissa stood at the entrance alone, staring into the night. But that wasn't the end. Daniel wasn't done. This wasn't revenge. It was the start of something much sharper. Daniel didn't drive home. He drove to the edge of the city, toward a storage facility he had rented months earlier. Back then, he'd told himself it was for emergencies. He hadn't known what kind. Now he did. Inside the unit, everything was prepared. Travel bags, documents, backup keys, a burner phone, and enough cash to move without a trace. It wasn't panic, it was control. While Melissa had been slipping away piece by piece, Daniel had been securing his exit in silence. The signs were there. Missed calls, dodged questions, cold goodnights. You don't need proof when the pattern is loud enough. He left the unit with only what he needed. He wasn't running, he was stepping out of a house already burning. Melissa didn't come home that night. No apology. No explanation. Around 2 a.m., his phone buzzed. Can we talk? Not I'm sorry. Not are you okay? Just that. Empty effort in a hollow envelope. He didn't reply. At 8:05 the next morning, he emptied half of their joint account. Legal. Fair. Necessary. Then he opened a new account under a name she didn't know. By 9:20, he was on the phone with his attorney, a man who didn't waste time on small talk. You want to start with separation or go straight to divorce? The attorney asked. Straight, Daniel said. By 11 o'clock, the paperwork was in motion. That afternoon, Daniel returned to the restaurant. The same clothes, the same calm. He walked through the front doors, past the same hostess. Her face dropped when she saw him, like a replay she didn't want to relive. I need to speak with your manager, he said. The man emerged within minutes, visibly nervous. Sir, I want to apologize for. I'm not here to press charges. Daniel cut in. I'm not filing anything. The manager looked confused, relieved, then confused again. I want a copy of your surveillance footage. Every camera, every second from when I arrived to when I left. I don't think we're allowed to. You have it, Daniel said, handing over a card with a secure delivery address. And in about 8 hours, your restaurant is going to be the backdrop to every viral clip on the internet. Might as well own the narrative. The manager nodded, no longer making eye contact. By the time Daniel reached his temporary rental by the water, the videos were already online. Multiple angles. People had stitched them together like a documentary. The man's smug introduction, the threat, the takedown. No names were attached, but captions had already taken over. Table 14 wasn't playing around. When the husband isn't the fool she thought he was. Teeth or ribs. Comment sections flooded with theories. Some said Daniel was ex-military. Others guessed he was a corporate lawyer with combat training. No one got it right. That didn't matter. The point had landed. The man Melissa brought into their lives had become a meme. In every clip, his arrogance dissolved frame by frame. By morning, he was internet famous for losing a fight he didn't know he'd started. Melissa didn't call. She messaged instead. Voicemails followed. They weren't apologies. They were explanations. Excuses. It wasn't what it looked like. He showed up uninvited. I didn't expect it to go that far. Each one tried to rewrite a version of events that was already public. Daniel didn't respond. Instead, he focused on the divorce. The attorney moved quickly. Melissa was served at her office during a strategy meeting. She hadn't expected it. He could tell by how fast the office's internal Slack leaked it. She tried to keep her job, but PR is unforgiving. Her clients didn't want scandal attached to their brand. She was asked to step back, pending review. Then came the final blow. Daniel sent a 1-minute clip of the incident to Melissa's parents. No caption, no context, just video. 2 hours later, her father called. He didn't yell, just sighed. "I'm sorry," he said. "You don't owe me that." "No," he replied. "But I needed to say it." Melissa's sister messaged next. "I always wondered if she knew what she had. She didn't." Daniel replied, "Now she knows what she lost." He didn't stop there. He booked the same restaurant, same table for one final meeting. Not to argue, not to relive the past, to finish it. He used a mutual friend to relay a message. He wants to talk. One dinner, one conversation, then it's done. Melissa showed up. She arrived second, exactly how Daniel planned it. She scanned the room cautiously, clearly nervous. Not because she feared him, because she didn't know what he would say in front of others. That loss of control made her sweat. Daniel stood, gestured for her to sit. "Thanks for coming." They ordered light. She made small talk, tried to sound stable. When she began to shift the blame gently, phrases like, "We lost each other," "It got complicated," "You were distant." Daniel pulled a manila envelope from his jacket and placed it in front of her. Inside, finalized divorce papers, a copy of the footage, and a notarized statement from the restaurant manager confirming the events of that night. "What is this?" she asked. "Finality." She flipped through the documents. "You're making this public." "It already is. This just makes it legal." "You're going to ruin me." "No, you did that." He stood, buttoned his jacket, and looked at her one last time. "You made your choice. I just made mine." Then he walked out, steady, resolved, leaving behind the weight of a story that no longer belonged to him. The days that followed were quiet, but not the kind of quiet that brings peace. It was the aftermath of something loud, a shift in atmosphere, not silence but fallout. Melissa didn't call again. No more voicemails, no more texts. She wasn't done processing the reality of what had happened. She was realizing she couldn't shape it anymore. Her narrative had slipped out of her hands the moment someone posted that first video. The footage had gone farther than either of them expected. Local news picked it up next, then larger entertainment accounts. Blogs debated who was in the wrong, but the internet had already decided. She became the woman at table 14, the one who brought another man to her anniversary dinner and watched her husband dismantle the moment with nothing more than restraint and timing. Daniel didn't post anything. He didn't need to. The story had taken on a life of its own. Melissa's job suspended her pending review, citing concerns about client trust and optics. Her attempt to defend herself online, a vague post about private matters being exploited, didn't help. She kept comments off. Smart, but late. People don't forget betrayal that comes with video evidence. Daniel, meanwhile, focused on closure. He filed final motions through his attorney, declined interviews, and deleted social media altogether. His phone stayed quiet. No need to scroll. No interest in tracking the chaos he left behind. He wasn't running. He was closing doors on purpose. From mutual friends, he heard bits and pieces. Melissa had tried to hold onto her image at work, but the pressure became too visible. Clients left. Projects stalled. Her firm stopped returning her calls. The man she brought to dinner, the one who threatened him so casually, disappeared from public life. One friend mentioned he'd stopped showing up at the gym. Another claimed he moved out of state. Someone joked he switched to yoga. It didn't matter. Daniel's focus shifted to rebuilding. Not in a flashy way. He took time off work, not to hide, but to reset. He rented a cabin 3 hours north, one that didn't appear on most maps. It had no history tied to anyone but him. No photos of anniversaries. No shared closets. No reminders of the life he had just unmade. There, in the stillness of unfamiliar mornings, Daniel started writing again. Not about her. Not about the betrayal. About the man who emerged from it. The one who understood now what he had ignored before. That silence is not strength when it enables someone else's comfort at the cost of your dignity. He relearned how to wake up without scanning for red flags. How to fall asleep without rehearsing conversations. The tension that had become normal was gone. Not erased, but removed, like a weight taken off his shoulders mid-step. One afternoon, while sipping coffee on the cabin's porch, a package arrived. No return label, just a small square box. Inside, the same silver jewelry box the other man had placed on their anniversary table. It was empty, except for a folded note inside. 3 words. I was wrong. The handwriting was rushed, uneven. Daniel didn't react. He stared at the note, turned it over once, then closed the box and placed it on the firewood pile. That night he burned it, not for revenge, not for spectacle, simply because it wasn't his burden to carry anymore. Weeks passed. The internet moved on as it always does. Another scandal took its place. New faces, new headlines. But the people who had been there, who had watched in real time, remembered. Table 14 was eventually removed by the restaurant. Officially, they said it was under renovation. Unofficially, no one wanted to sit where it happened. The waitstaff never brought it up again, but when regulars joked about it, they all knew which night was being referenced. Some tried to recreate the moment. 2 young couples once showed up dressed similarly, ordered the same menu, whispered the same lines, filmed it for laughs. It didn't land. It didn't go viral. Because what happened that night wasn't theater. It wasn't dramatics. It was discipline. It was truth served plainly in a room full of people who weren't ready for it. Daniel never responded to the note. There was nothing left to say. He had already said everything he needed to, not with speeches but with decisions. Eventually, the divorce was finalized. Melissa signed without protest. There were no drawn-out asset battles. No courtroom drama. She didn't try to claim anything sentimental. She knew better. Surprisingly, Daniel began hearing from people he hadn't spoken to in years. Old co-workers, distant cousins, even a few of her former friends. Some just offered support. Others messaged, "I saw what happened. You handled it with class." He didn't revel in it, but he didn't reject it either. Because for once, he wasn't being praised for staying quiet. He was being recognized for standing up. Daniel didn't look back. Not because he was stubborn, but because there was nothing behind him worth carrying. After finalizing the divorce, he closed the last joint account, sold the apartment, and removed his name from anything they once shared. Every detail she might have used to hold on to the past. Banking access, shared subscriptions, forgotten files was cut off. It wasn't vengeance. It was hygiene. For the first time in years, his life felt quiet by design. No tiptoeing around mood swings. No decoding vague comments. No managing another person's narrative at the cost of his own. He stayed at the cabin for another month. During that time, he relearned how to enjoy boredom. Walks with no destination. Cooking without urgency. Even his sleep changed. No more waking at 3 a.m. to a cold side of the bed or the glow of a phone screen turned away from him. His lawyer sent final confirmation papers. Signed, processed, irrevocable. Melissa hadn't contested anything. Her silence now wasn't indifference. It was resignation. She understood there was nothing left to salvage. Daniel spent those final days at the cabin organizing, not reminiscing. His journal became consistent, not about the pain but about the rebuild, the clarity, about how long he had operated on patience and hope, thinking those were enough to make a broken system function. He'd spent years adjusting himself to accommodate her drift, mistaking effort for love and tolerance for commitment. But clarity cuts deep, and once he saw the truth, there was no going back to pretending. One morning, he received a message from Melissa's sister, short and unforced. "You didn't deserve how she handled it." Daniel replied simply, I know, but now I'm handling it. By the end of the second month, the story had faded from public attention. But those who were there, who had been at the restaurant that night or who watched the footage online, still remembered. The viral moment became a kind of urban legend. The restaurant eventually remodeled the entire section. They said it was to modernize the layout, but the staff quietly admitted no one wanted to sit at that table again. One former employee even joked that Daniel's story would outlive the restaurant itself. He didn't respond to the few remaining messages Melissa had sent, mostly late at night, not because he was angry, but because they no longer reached him. A final gesture came unexpectedly. He was back in the city, meeting with his realtor to finalize the property sale. After the paperwork, he returned to his car and found a small envelope under the windshield wiper. No note, just a printed quote inside. Some people leave to find peace. Others leave so peace can finally arrive. He smiled. It wasn't regretful, just clear. That night, he boxed up the last of what had once been theirs. Gifts, old cards, wedding memorabilia. He didn't burn them. He didn't frame them. He just packed them up and left them with his lawyer for disposal. The next phase wasn't loud. No declarations. No social media posts. Daniel accepted a new job offer out of state. Not because he had to run, but because he was ready to build something that didn't carry the weight of betrayal in its foundation. He moved quietly, signed a lease on a modest house near a quiet park. No penthouse views, no extravagant statements, just space. Clean, intentional space. Months later, someone who had been at the restaurant that night spotted him walking his dog. "You're the guy from table 14, right?" Daniel didn't correct him. He just nodded once and kept walking. Because being remembered for standing up for yourself isn't shameful. It's not something to hide from. If anything, it's a reminder that one night, when pushed, he didn't shout. He didn't break. He didn't beg. He acted. That was the lesson. Some people are taught to hold on, no matter what, to weather every storm, to fix what someone else keeps breaking. But Daniel learned the truth the hard way. Not everything broken needs fixing. Some things need ending. And when the moment came, he didn't just end it. He did it in a way that left no questions, only clarity.